Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the national headquarters of the Theosophical Society in America. My name is John Chianchosi. I'm the Director of Public Programs. At this time, I ask that you turn off your cell phones and other noise-making electronic devices. This evening's lecture is being streamed live, and I welcome friends watching through the internet. And I also extend a special welcome to our friends who are participating in the Olcott experience, who've come here from many different parts of the country. I hope you enjoy your stay here. The Theosophical Society promotes study, meditation, and service. We encourage open-minded inquiry into the world religions, philosophy, science, and the arts. And we have a deep respect for the unity of all life. Our goal is to help people explore the spiritual paths so as that they can arrive at a deeper understanding regarding the wisdom of the ages. Furthermore, we firmly believe that this wisdom is not limited to any one tradition, and thus we offer programs from all traditions. As you will see if you take one of our program brochures that lists the programs that are offered here for these 3 months of October, November, December. A great variety of programs and many wonderful ones. You will also find this listing on our website, and there you can register for any of the programs that appeal to you. The Theosophical Society is a membership organization, and many of you are members, but of course we're always happy to invite people to join who are not as yet members, and we're always happy to welcome new members. However, what we offer here, including our programs, our resources of library, bookshop, and wonderful grounds, are open to the public at large, and everyone is always welcome to come and make use of this wonderful space and these wonderful programs. Now, this evening we have a special speaker, because she is the national president of the Theosophical Society in America. That makes her my boss, and I have to be on special good behavior. Many of you know Barbara Hebert, as she does speak here at least once a season, but she has been around for quite some time and probably known to many of you who have been members. She is currently the national president. She's a third-generation theosophist and has been involved in local, regional, and national offices throughout the years of membership within the Theosophical Society. In addition to her years of service within the Theosophical Society, she has been a mental health practitioner and educator for many years, helping many people. We are always happy that she puts aside a little time in her schedule to participate in these Thursday evening lectures. And this evening she will speak on social justice and spirituality. Please join me in welcoming Barbara Hebert.
Thank you very much. It's so nice to see all of you and to have you all here, and I'm glad to be here, and I'm glad you're here as well. So I didn't put spirituality on the bottom for any particular reason. I just wanted to spread it out, and I love that image. It just looks beautiful to me. Social justice is a term that's thrown around very easily these days in the media, social media, and otherwise, and by any number of people. It's a huge concept that applies to many of society's problems. And as we all know, society has plenty of problems. Before we go any further, it's probably important to understand the meaning of this concept. Social justice. Social, obviously, relates to society, which is the aggregate of all people who live, the aggregate of all of them together. The unity of individuals, right? That's who we are. From the perspective of the perennial wisdom, we could expand this definition even further and talk about the aggregate of all living beings, of all life. At the deepest level, we are one, all of us. From this perspective, then, society includes everything. I love all those pictures. Justice means equality, fairness, equity. All of us having the same privileges, the same opportunities, the same responsibilities. No one treated differently. All treated fairly and impartially. When we put the two together, social justice, we are talking about fairness and equity for all living things. Would you agree with that? That was how it seemed to me as well. Social justice is equity and fairness for humans, animals, nature, our mother, the earth, our solar system, our galaxy, our universe, and beyond, because we're all connected. We're all one. This, of course, fits within the theosophical worldview, because the first object of the Theosophical Society is about unity and the unity of all life. And so social justice applies across the board, not just to humans. If we are all one, then what happens to one of us happens to all of us. Therefore, if one person is treated unfairly, we are all treated unfairly. If we don't care for our mother, the earth, then we're not caring for ourselves, because we are that mother. When we send junk into space, or we leave junk in space, I don't know that we send, maybe we do send junk into space, I don't know. But when we leave it in space, we're doing that to ourselves, because the solar system is us. Whatever happens to me happens to you, and whatever happens to you happens to me. And this is the very core of the esoteric doctrine. Perhaps from the stand of spirituality and the perennial wisdom, we need to add another component here, compassion. Compassion is a strong feeling with the calm, meaning with passion. A strong feeling for the suffering of others and a desire to help. We must add compassion when we talk about social justice. Because social justice, from this perspective, social justice is the spiritual path. That yellow or gold it's not quite as easy to see as it was on my small computer. Spiritual evolution, spiritual self-transformation, spiritual awakening, whatever terms we use, what we are doing, this awakening process, walks hand in hand with compassion for others and a desire to help. Selfless concern for the well-being of others. That is the spiritual path. That is the spiritual path. When we work for the welfare of others with a deep sense of compassion, all beings are uplifted, meaning all have the same opportunities, so that life in its varied forms is honored and respected. Well, that says it, right? So we're done, right? We just work for other people and we're done. We're on the spiritual path, that's it. Well, probably not exactly. To be a social activist is to walk the spiritual path, whether we know it or not. There are many people out there who are spiritual activists who may not realize that they are walking this path to spiritual unfoldment. But as long as they have that compassion for others and they are working to help uplift others, then they're walking a path, aren't they? Because they are serving all of humanity, or the nature kingdom, the animals, the environment, whatever it is. They are uplifting all, which is the goal, and that is the spiritual path. You notice the rocky path? Well, I chose that because moving towards this awareness of the unity of the whole, toward an understanding of our place in the universe, toward reawakening what is already inherent in us, but about which we are not necessarily conscious, is difficult. It is a rocky path. Okay. It is not just this simple little road that we take, even if it looks like it's going uphill. It is rocky and it can be very difficult. Working for social justice can also be very difficult. But we're here, right? So we are willing to walk this path. We're willing to walk this difficult and rocky path toward conscious awareness of who we are, of the unity of all life. But what about karma? I mean, it's just not that simple, is it? It could be, maybe. But those of us who have studied, we have an idea about karma. And karma kind of plays into this whole idea of helping others, doesn't it? A little bit. Our own karma, the karma of the person or people or animals or nature, whoever we're trying to help. How does karma play into this scenario? Well, I'm certainly, people have written books and books and books and books about karma, and many of you have studied those books, so I'm not here to explain karma again to you. First of all, because I don't know that I really, truly understand it. In fact, I don't think any of us really, truly understand it. I think we have a little bit of a glimpse, a little bit of an understanding. But I think it plays into this discussion about social justice and social activism. So I'd like to talk about it just a little bit. Karma, we know, it's frequently referred to as the law of cause and effect, or the law of action and reaction. When I was a little girl, I used to think that, if I hit my sister, which I did on occasion. I know you're watching, I apologize again. But, if I hit my sister, then I was going to end up in the next life with a sister who was going to hit me, right? I don't know. Pretty simplistic, but that was my understanding. If I did this, then this would happen. Of course, over the years with study, that perspective has changed. For me, my understanding of karma at this point in my life, okay, and that could change, may change, probably will change, hopefully maybe will change, because I want to continue to grow in my understanding of these basic doctrines, these basic laws of the universe, is that it is a universal law based on harmony. Everything that we think, say, and do impacts the harmony of the universe. And this law works to restore the harmony. Blavatsky writes, "Karma creates nothing, nor does it design. It's just there. It is the individual who plans and creates causes, and karmic law adjusts the effects, which adjustment is not an act, but universal harmony. tending ever to resume its original position. The universe, that is. Like a bough, which bent down too forcibly, rebounds with corresponding vigor. So when we pull that branch down, we've disturbed the harmony of that tree. And when we let go, it pops back up. Because that's the response, so that it can find its place again in harmony. So it's not about hitting my sister and ending up with a sister who hits me. It's about harmony. It's about balance in the universe. And I think very often in this day and age, karma is a concept that people talk about just sort of willy-nilly. I had a former colleague who used to say things like, oh, well, that karma's going to catch up to that person. But she didn't really mean it because she defined herself as a Christian counselor and perceived herself as very sort of middle-of-the-road Christian. Now, I will say that there are references probably to karma in the Christian literature, but it's not overtly taught as karma. So she was just picking this term up and going with it. I love jokes, and I like for people to laugh because I think we're very serious a lot of the time. And I looked today for an appropriate joke to put on the PowerPoint about karma. There was nothing appropriate. I did have a good time laughing at what I found, so, if you're so inclined, but nothing appropriate for here. But we take it so simplistically, like karma's going to get you, Karma actually is found in many religious and spiritual traditions across the world. We commonly think of it as an Eastern concept, Hindu, Buddhist, Jain, but it's also implied in the writings of Christianity and Judaism. For example, in Galatians, I think it's Galatians, yes, okay. There's some people who've done more Bible study than I who are nodding their heads yes. Paul says, whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. And in the Old Testament, Hosea prophesies about Israel, for they sow the wind, and they shall reap the whirlwind. It's there, but we have to look for it. I love this quote. The idea of karma is that you continually get the teaching that you need to open your heart. We think of karma as bad things that happen to us. We might say good karma once in a while, but it was not typically. Oh, I had the worst karma, this whatever, We think of it that way. But karma is not just about that balance, but within that balance, it teaches us. Everything that happens to us is a lesson. Positive things, things that are not so positive. It's there to teach us to open our hearts. If we believe that we're here on this earth to learn and to grow, and I think that's what many of us sitting in this room and watching believe, we're here to transform spiritually, then it makes sense that our life circumstances facilitate this process. Now, again, I do want to say that I think our understanding of karma is minuscule. I think it's really, we don't really have much of an understanding. It's a universal law. And try as I might, I don't think I'm in a place where I can understand universal laws so much. We are reminded in some of the theosophical writings that karma's workings are not mechanistic and are difficult to predict, even by those self-actualized beings, frequently referred to as the Mahatmas. In letter number 126, the Mahatma K.H. tells Senate, "You know nothing of the ins and outs of the work of karma, of this law." and later added, have another look at karma and remember that it ever works in the most unexpected ways. So while we think we understand, just a caution, we really don't. And so what we perceive may not be quite accurate. Regardless, it is important to look at whatever understanding we have of this universal law in light of social justice. For example, if someone is born into a marginalized culture, a culture that does not have equal rights or opportunities, well, it's their karma, right? I mean, that's why they're born there. They're supposed to learn something from it. So we shouldn't do anything to change it or correct it. We don't have the right to change somebody's karma, do we? I mean, after all, they chose that so they could learn and grow, right? You guys, you've heard that. I know you have. Annie Besant, you need not be troubled about karma any more than by the law of gravitation. You cannot interfere with it. Sometimes you find a person who says, I must not help so-and-so. It is his or her karma to suffer. You might as well say you will not pick up a child that has fallen, because by the law of gravitation, it has fallen and must be left under its own law to take care of itself. Your duty is to do all you can to help others. Do not take karma as an excuse for indolence. Isn't that beautiful? I didn't think about it like that, you know? I know gravity exists because my feet are usually on the ground, and sometimes when I trip, more of me is on the ground. And that's due to gravity. I don't understand how it works. I'm sure there may be people in this room who do, but I'm not one of them. But I know it exists. But I'm going to get back up. If one of you tripped and fell, I'm going to try to help you get up. Okay? Gravity doesn't mean you have to stay there. I love that quote. Annie Besant, of course, the second international president of the Theosophical Society, was quite a social activist in her own right at the end of the 1800s and into the early 1900s. But that's a whole nother lecture. I do too. I would gladly sit and listen to her. So what Bill said, in case you didn't hear, is that he wishes she was alive now. We'll have to have that conversation, because I agree. Maybe she is. Well, we need her here. Karma and social justice. If we remember that we are all one in the truest sense of the word, then we can reflect on these words of the Mahatma Moria to H.P. Blavatsky. He said, do not be ever thinking of yourself and forgetting that there are others. For you have no karma of your own, but the karma of each one is the karma of all. Because we're connected, which is why I chose this. We're connected. The karma of one is the karma of all, and the karma of all is the karma of one. William Judge wrote, karmic causes already set in motion must be allowed to sweep on until exhausted. But this permits no person to refuse to help others and every sentient being. And he also says, we should not shrink from the duty to relieve pain and sorrow if we can, for it is both cowardice and conceit to say that we will not help this or that person because it is his or her karma to suffer. In the face of suffering, it is our good karma to relieve it if it is in our power. This kind of brings us to a discussion about dharma. It's in our path. Dharma is probably not referred to as frequently in that world out there as is karma. But it is quite well known. My favorite dharma is the daughter of two of our staff members. Her name is Dharma, and I think she's quite a remarkable person in her own right. So we hear this term dharma, and I've heard it called throughout my life responsibility, duty. For a long time, I thought that my dharma was to be a mother and to raise my children. This is my dharma. This is my responsibility, my duty. And that is probably the case to some extent, because I learned a great deal about myself through that process, as any parent does. But I think that my understanding of dharma, like my understanding of karma when I was younger, was minimal and simplistic, probably because that's what I could handle at that point in my life. Dharma, as with other metaphysical concepts, is very complex and can be interpreted in many ways. We are not talking probably in what many Buddhists would consider the context of dharma. This is definitely from a more theosophical perspective. My understanding of it at this point, okay, again, at this point, my understanding, is that our dharma is living according to the law of spiritual evolution. Joy Mills writes that dharma is our inevitable destiny, the rightness of ourself becoming nature, becoming real, becoming one with all that is. Dharma, from this perspective, is the path of spiritual unfoldment. Sorry. We live our dharma when we work to understand our true nature, the magnificence of our higher selves, our souls, whatever name you give it, it doesn't matter. Our essential unity with all life. And when we make choices to bring those elements into fruition, our dharma is our duty, our responsibility to make choices in thoughts, words, and actions that move us toward our ultimate destiny as self-actualized human beings. I wanted to go back to this. I got my slides off. I chose this picture of the lotus because it is so symbolic of who we are. The lotus is rooted in the mud and the decay, in the silt of this muddy, murky water. And it works its way up through this murky water until it finally emerges on the surface. And there it blooms, it blossoms, and then blooms in the light, even though its feet are still submerged in that muddy, murky place. Its full beauty is realized through this journey, much as our real beauty, the beauty of that higher aspect of ourselves, is realized through our journey that frequently begins in the muddy, murky, decaying existence that we call life. Always growing up toward the light so that we can blossom and bloom into beauty. This is dharma. This is dharma. I'm thinking that you're probably wondering what the heck I'm talking about and what happened to social justice, right? Okay, so I've gone on this sort of meandering path, which is always much more fun than the straight and narrow. Not that I wouldn't know anything about except for the straight and narrow path, right? We really haven't gone as far astray as one would think. Both karma and dharma, if understood at a deeper level, not the ultimate level, because I don't know that we're there yet, but certainly a deeper level, then we have no choice but to become social activists. We have no choice. We've already heard many words that indicate that we must help others as a part of karma. As Annie Besant said, your duty is to do all you can to help others. Do not take karma as an excuse for indolence. And when we think in terms of dharma, making choices that move us toward our destiny of self-actualized human beings, then once again we realize that we must help others. As has been stated by many throughout the years, theosophy is the practice of altruism. Dorothy Bell, a dear friend of many from Australia, wrote, "As a principle, altruism expresses the true root meaning of the words theos and Brahma. The motion of expansion from within outwardly. It means giving unconditionally to the whole from within outwardly. It realizes the wholeness and unity of all, and every movement of that realization of wholeness is open and generous and all-embracing. It is compassion, love, gentleness, kindness, and the full expression of who we truly are." That is what altruism is. And theosophy is the practice of it. If we act altruistically, we put the needs of the whole before the needs of the self. When we recognize the wholeness and unity of all, as Dorothy says, we realize once again that what happens to one of us happens to all of us. We are the Rohingya. We are the hungry. We are the children who live in war-torn countries. We are refugees. We are the other, whoever that is, whatever that is. Okay, so what do we do about it? I mean, we've got all that, okay? We get the theory, but what do we do about it? Well, there are a lot of things I think that we can do about it. There are probably as many ways of social activism as there are people. No one can point any of us in a specific direction. We all have to choose that direction for ourselves based on what's inside of us, our passion, okay, that goes along with our compassion, what speaks to us, what is important to us. We have to be guided by our own concerns and passions. Now, I just want to slip in a reminder here, since it's John pointed out, the national president, which still sometimes makes me wonder how that happened. But, excuse me, I want to cough into the microphone too badly. Excuse me. I do want to point out that the Theosophical Society as an organization, does not take a stand on any issue beyond those issues involved with the three objects of the society: unity and reverence for all life, open-minded inquiry into religion, philosophy, and science, and spiritual self-transformation. So the organization as such, because there is no dogma, Members are not required to believe any one thing, except to be in sympathy with those objects. The society does not take a stand. And that's okay, because the society is made up of individuals, us, people, and we as individuals can take a stand. We as individuals can become social activists. Actually, I think we're compelled to become social activists and seek social justice for everyone. I do believe that there are outer ways of serving and inner ways of serving. Outer ways of serving, things like protesting. A lot of people here have protested. One of our former national presidents, Betty Bland, her husband David joyfully announces periodically that he's been arrested for protesting, and is very proud of that. And I'm proud of him because he's taken a stand for what's really important to him. Okay, so protesting. Becoming involved. What is that? Become involved with politics. If you have an issue with the political things that are going on, become involved with politics. Vote. Go figure, Or work for a candidate that you feel is best from your perspective. Okay? Become involved. Go out and do something physical. Become physically involved. This picture, which isn't real clear, is the picture of a lady who will be delivering these groceries to seniors who are in need of food. This is through the Humanitarian Service Project, which is in DuPage County, which is where we live. I just have to mention, when we're talking about this, I've got to mention the Humanitarian Service Project. Carol Kettering, and Floyd Kettering, her husband, but Carol was the driving force, in 1979 founded the Humanitarian Service Project in their garage here on the campus of the Theosophical Society. Floyd at that time was our chief financial officer and is currently our national treasurer. Carol was compelled to serve others in a very practical and fundamental manner. Humanitarian Service Project's purpose is to alleviate the pain and suffering that poverty brings to needy seniors and to children. Carol saw a need, and she and Floyd found a way to address that need. There are needs everywhere, and we can physically go out and do something about it. Build houses with Habitat or some other organization. Work in a food pantry. Do food drives, whatever. There are many ways to do this. Outer ways of serving, and they're very valuable. I also feel that I need to point out that there are inner ways of serving. Inner ways of serving. Meditation. When we meditate, one of the basic teachings in the Theosophical body of literature is that thought has power. When we send out thoughts of peace, when we send out thoughts of love and compassion, those thoughts radiate around the world. And we are sending out peace and compassion. When we meditate for world peace, when we meditate so that the suffering of others is alleviated, it's not quite like going and filling a grocery bag with food, but it is a way of service. Becoming self-aware is another way to serve the world. Doesn't sound like it, does it? Because it sounds like we're just looking at ourselves and focusing on ourselves. That's not what it's about at all. Because as we change, everyone else changes. What happens to one happens to all. So when one of us makes just the teeny tiniest movement, I would say forward is probably the best way to describe it, towards reawakening that awareness within, then all of us are pulled just a tiny bit further that way. Changing ourselves. Changing ourselves changes the world. So I'm going to share a story with you. Oh well, okay. It had a top at something at the top, but doesn't matter. So this is a story that Dorothy Bell shared. So I'm stealing Dorothy's story. Thank you, Dorothy, if you're watching. She's probably not, because it's probably 4 o'clock in the morning wherever she is. So she told the story of a lady that she knew, Maria, and that's supposed to be Maria. Maria's obviously not her real name, and that's not really a picture of Maria. But Maria felt a great affinity with the theosophical worldview. But seeing the one life in all creation, it seemed vague and abstract to her. She kind of got it, but not exactly. But she felt that the idea was very compelling. So she decided to try and work on it in her daily life. She would look at a tree or a person or an animal, and she'd say to herself, that is the one life expressed in a tree. That is the one life expressed in a dog. That person is an expression of the one life. Her approach evokes Sri Ram's words in his book, Consciousness, Its Nature and Action. He wrote, "Life is nothing but consciousness completely conditioned by the organism it uses." Maria even called her cat God Cat to remind her of the inner reality that the outer physical form obscured. She spent months training her mind in this way. But despite these efforts, she was still struggling with really feeling the truth of what she was thinking. Finally, one day, as she was walking along a busy city street, a strange thing happened. Out of a shadowy side alley, there appeared a homeless man who stepped right into her path, still adjusting his clothes after obviously attending to his personal needs. He was bearded, long-haired, wild-eyed, smelly, and very dirty. Her initial reaction was repulsion, disgust, some fear, a little anger. But as she began to turn away, a strong thought stopped her in her tracks. This is the one life expressing itself in this man. She was stunned. She saw the man in this new light, including the sacredness of his journey on this planet. The disgust and fear disappeared. She felt nothing specific toward him as a person, only a general sense of goodwill and freedom. Later, when she shared her story, somebody said, "But you didn't give him anything." She thought about it for a while and she said, "I did. I gave him respect." Again, changing ourselves. Hardest work of all. As we change ourselves, however we do that, we are changing the world. As we said earlier, and several times, what happens to one happens to all. We must be social activists. We must advocate for social justice in our world, in our own way, whether outwardly, inwardly, both, whatever. We must do it. It is not just our karma to do it, it is our dharma to do it. It is part of walking this path. And so as our candle is lit, so are the candles of every other. To paraphrase Helen Keller, social justice will be attained when the great mass of people are filled with the sense of responsibility for each other's welfare. It's both our karma, well, she didn't say this last part, I did. It's both, I'm not sure that, maybe she did know about karma and dharma, I don't know. It's both our karma and our dharma to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. And we do have time for questions or comments or points of discussion. So if you have a question, please raise your hand so that I can bring you the microphone. And we're also taking questions from people watching through the internet. You can send a note in if you like.
Hi, yes. During the last presidential election, there was caused a bitter schism between my relatives in my family, so that the family members split, basically, and don't talk to each other. Is it necessary with social activism to be in moral alignment with one specific political party or another?
Okay, so what I should have started off by saying, and I typically do, is that I'm here as a seeker, just like everyone else, and I don't really have any answers. So I don't really have an answer for your question. No, I do actually have an opinion. How's that? I don't have an answer, but I'm a good theosophist. I always have an opinion that I'm very happy to share. So I think my personal opinion is that we have to be in moral alignment with ourselves. And so that is probably the most important thing of all. And so I don't think that has to do, political parties are part of this illusory world that we live in. You know, it's very real on a daily basis, but it's really illusion. In the overall scheme of things, I love that whole thing about, and I use this with my kids, but it works along these same lines as well. How important is this going to be in 10 minutes, 10 hours, 10 years, 10,000 years? So that's kind of my perspective. It makes me very sad when people can't get along because they have different opinions. That's very difficult, and it happens a lot, sadly. So, okay. Other thoughts, comments? Yes, ma'am. Wait till John comes so everybody can hear you.
Thank you. I was just wondering if you could repeat the quote at the beginning of Maria's story.
Yes. Let's see. And I can probably, go back to it. Oh, it was not there. Okay. Well, that's why it needs to be repeated. Oh, yes. The quote by Sri Ram. Yes. Sri Ram, by the way, for those of you who are not aware, was an international president of the Theosophical Society, and he was perhaps one of the most spiritual individuals with whom I've ever come in contact. Now, I was a little girl when I came in contact with him, but I think that's only increased through the years as I've read his material. He wrote, that's what Maria said. Okay. Life is nothing but consciousness, completely conditioned by the organism it uses. You want me to repeat it one more time? Yes. Life is nothing but consciousness, completely conditioned by the organism it uses. We don't often think of our bodies as organisms that we use, but that's what they are. Yeah. That worked for you? Okay, good. Okay. Comments, thoughts? Okay, okay. And then Linda, did you have your hand? Okay.
I just think it's interesting that there were that part of the Bodhisattva's vow is we are not free until everyone is free, and then there was a statement from the early anarchists, the ones that were working for social justice, that no one is free until everyone is free. So I think that was an interesting parallel.
Linda, and then we'll come back to you, okay?
Thanks, Barbara. Just a comment. I also have been affected by the latest presidential election, and for me, the way I maintain my equanimity about it is to remind myself I really see a lot of people acting out of fear, and that helps me have more compassion and patience with people whose political ideologies are very different from mine, you know. To just remember that, yeah, we're all part of this, we're all one, and some of us are more afraid than others.
Yeah. And fear is a very strong motivator. This lady, and then Bill. I'm sorry that I don't remember your name.
My name's Shannon.
Shannon, okay.
We hadn't met. You're good. So it was Archbishop Desmond Tutu who, when South Africa, and I'll get to the question, had a unification process that he went over tribunals of those of war crimes. And bringing together that nation of deep-rooted differences. I think it's been troubling for me, coming from the idea that if we are all one and having compassion for each other, it meant a lot to me tonight that you spoke of outward and inward spiritual social justice and activism. That being said, I would like to see more conversations bringing together where we are together. And I'm curious if the Theosophical Society has stepped into that arena. There were many people who looked at what Archbishop Desmond Tutu did as a betrayer on all sides. Yet there was great healing that came in that. And I was curious if, outside of necessarily politics, but in the conversation of compassion, unity, like you're doing tonight, if there are more opportunities for that.
My perspective is there's always opportunity for that. You know, what the Theosophical Society, okay, so what the perennial wisdom, according to my understanding, is compassion and love. And that's all that really matters. Love is at the basis. And so every time we come together and every time we talk about a topic, whether it's social justice or whether it's Buddhism or Zoroastrianism or meditation or whatever, we're coming together and in love, you know, and compassion and a willingness to hear one another. And so I think that conversation is always happening. I would like always, I mean, we can always talk more, yes. But I think it is hopefully always happening. I'm not sure that that really answers your question exactly, but...
tells me that part of what your mission is, and that you, as the president, are constantly aware of that conversation keeping going. So I can get dates downstairs or online.
Absolutely, absolutely. And in the program brochure. Okay. Bill, did you want to add something?
I wish I.
You don't have to.
I wish I rose my hand, but. Well, as far as the, I'm gonna say it, the president administration, be careful what you ask for, as far as anything else. And we'll put it that way.
Okay. We do, you know, I really do, because the society as a whole is apolitical, so to speak. Then, you know, I don't bring that up when I'm on the stage. I have my own personal beliefs. I have my own personal activism that I am involved with, but that's Barbara. That's not the president of the Theosophical Society, beyond supporting and sustaining the three objects of the society. So, other thoughts, comments? Joe? Okay, and then this lady up here.
So I think one of the things that Theosophy has taught me that is one of the more difficult things to integrate into my everyday life is that when we think about the word compassion, we instantly think about someone who's been hurt or wronged. We think about a victim. We think about someone that it's easy to have compassion for because we have mirror neurons and where pain is an easy thing to identify with. But what's harder is to have compassion for someone who you think is working against your interests or who's hurting you or you perceive as someone who's attacking you, and to look at that person as a mirror and think, why do they hurt me so much? How do they have so much power in this situation? So to have compassion in that situation, which the perennial wisdom teaches us to use that in that way, that is something that
Yeah, it's so valuable and so needed today. Thank you for that.
Hi, my name is Janice.
Janice.
I've been active for a long time, and some of the things I find difficult is trying to get people to listen to other points of views. And I find a lot of times it gets harder because, like the other person who referred to divisions in families or divisions, I've kind of gone through that myself, and it takes a long time, and it's something we can't all do separately as individuals. We kind of have to be unified in some way. I mean, we won't agree on everything, but there has to be some. I found a lot of people on some issues will not listen to the other viewpoint. So.
Yeah, it's really hard when we deal with people who really don't want to listen, to hear what we may have to say. But I have to tell you that sometimes I don't want to listen to what other people have to say too. I think that works for all of us. You know, at some point, you know, we're kind of there once in a while. I appreciate being able to have my own beliefs and not have someone come to me and say, Barbara, you should think this way or think this way, whichever way it is. I honor, okay, if you're watching, I'm sorry. So my son, who I love, obviously, beyond anything in the world, he was raised, well, I raised him, right? So he was raised in a theosophical family. He's grown, married with kids. He and his wife attend a very sort of Orthodox Christian church. You know what? I honor that. It's not my path, but I honor that for him. Okay? Now, I know it's a little bit different when we're talking about schisms due to politics or whatever beliefs, but it doesn't matter because it's not my path. But my job is to honor that path. My job is to honor the path of other people, even when I don't agree with them, and know that this is where they are in their journey. It's not where I am on my journey. May have been there, may be there some other time. Does that kind of make sense? Does that? Okay. I'm sorry, kid, I keep talking about you. Try not to talk about my children too much, but it happens. He's written in a question, hasn't he?
Somebody has.
Okay.
If a person realizes that his mother...
Motive.
Sorry. If a person realizes that his motive for being helpful to others is actually little more than self-aggrandizement, should he go ahead and be helpful anyway or not?
Well, as always, I have no answers. I think that probably for all of us at some point, that self-aggrandizement is kind of there. I mean, we're humans. We're working on self-actualizing, but we're still human. I would never encourage anybody to stop being kind and helpful. But I would, for me, I would hope that if I came to that realization, that I would then spend some time looking at my motive and working on my motive so that it's about other rather than self. So that's just my perspective.
You already just said what I was going to say, that you had that one slide about, social activism, the outward and the inward, and they have to be done simultaneously. You can't say, okay, I'm only going to do this and not pay attention to the judgments and so forth and the hanging on to how other people live their life and thinking that you have to change them.
Good point.
Because we can't.
We can't.
And part of that whole spiritual process is letting go of your opinions.
Mm-hmm.
of
And
how
judgments.
And judgments,
Yeah.
yeah.
How beautiful. Yes, thank you. Thank you for making that. I need to add that in. Thank you. Yes. Okay. Anyone else? All right.
Hello, I'm Michael.
Hi, Michael.
I'll say the following statement, and I would be curious as to what comes up for you in listening to this or hearing this. It struck me that compassion could be a vehicle, dharmically expressed, to see your own karma.
Okay, I would really have to think about what you said, but I do think that I'd never thought of all those words in that order before. I do think that dharma and karma do go together, and that we can everything that okay. So this is again my belief. Everything that happens is I think karma, because I think the universe is always balancing, always trying to come back into harmony. So anything that occurs is about karma. It doesn't have to be bad or good. It just is. It's just balancing. But they go together because dharma is how I'm working through whatever's happening to get to where I ultimately, one day, many lifetimes in the future, will be.
For the bow to return.
Yes, and to be self-actualized at some point, but through compassion always.
Yeah, and that's what I was referring to,
Yeah.
is that if you own it as self, that your compassionate thoughts or actions or statements or choices are dharmic in the sense that it is in this lifetime.
Yeah.
I could see that as leading to a reflection for you to become aware of an aspect of your karmic journey. I don't know if that makes it any clearer.
I'm going to think about it for a while,
Okay.
but I appreciate that thought. I do. I appreciate that. So because this is a journey, and we're all growing and learning and stretching, and hopefully expanding our understanding. Other comments? All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Barbara. I just want to make 2 announcements, and then I'd like to invite you all to stay for refreshments and continue the discussion and conversation. Tomorrow evening, we invite you to join us for a sound healing with Tibetan and crystal bowls. And this will be presented by Yolanda Lozano. She does these sort of programs for us 2 or 3 times a year, always very popular. It's a very peaceful and very pleasant experience, and very easy to enjoy and gain some relaxation as well as some maybe uplifting of spirit. That is at 7 p.m. If you'd like to attend tomorrow night, please register online. You can pay and walk in, but it's more expensive, so go back home and register online. All the people from attending the Olcott experience, of course, are welcome to participate. You don't have to register. You're good. Thursday next week, we will have with us Kurt Leland. He's a national lecturer for the Theosophical Society in America. He's been here many times and spoken here as well as taught workshops. He's a very, very worthwhile person to come and hear. He's an award-winning composer and an author of 8 or 9 books now, dealing on various subjects to do with astral projection, clairvoyance, and near-death experience. And the topic of his talk next week will be Inner Life Safari, the tour. And it's going to be an exploration of our inner spiritual life and the role that clairvoyance plays in that. And it is based quite a lot on the writings of Leadbeater. And he will follow that talk with a workshop on Saturday next week. And the workshop is Inner Life Safari, the workshop, I think. Now it's got a different title, but it's also an Inner Life Safari, a continuation of the exploration. Please come next week. If you're here for the Olcott experience, just extend your stay a few days. What's the difference? You're here, you've got a bed and you've got a room. Just stay on. That's fine. But otherwise, if you're local, certainly please come next week. Bring your friends along. The more the merrier. Thank you all for coming this evening. I hope you found the presentation enjoyable and inspiring as I did. And please stay, have refreshments. Thank you all.